This podcast is brought to you by Viking Capital, your best friend in swimming pool financing for over 20 years.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast. Today, we're going to learn a little bit more about Best Clear System, a futuristic pool water recycling system that promises to help homeowners save thousands of gallons of water while keeping their pool filter clean. With us today is Harold Tapley, pool industry veteran and CEO of Aquos Pools. Pleasure to have you with us today on the show, Harold.
Good morning. How you doing?
We're doing great. Basically, I know we had a chance to chat a bit at the Pool Industry Expo in Monterey, and what you were saying was resonating with me on a few different levels because what's going on with current events right now. But before we dive right into talking about product, I was wondering if you can give us a little bit about about your background in the industry, and how you first got started with Best Clear.
Yeah, well, my dad was a swimming pool contractor since the 60s, so I've been in the industry all my life. And, whenever you are involved in every phase of construction with a swimming pool, you get a lot of angles you can look at. And when, we got to a certain point in our industry of the drought really affecting our construction permitting and things like that, it really concerned me. So what I did is I happened to be at one of the Jandy junkets, you call it a trip, when we were back in Disney World. That's one of those crazy places. And I heard a conversation over my shoulder about somebody asking about a backwash valve, a new backwash valve, and it interested me, and I wanted to look at it. And I realized that it was a backwash valve designed as same as the Jandy valve, which is a never loop valve, and it's got the capability of being actuated. I like automation, and that really drove me towards the product that I ended up with our Best Clear system. I really wasn't planning on being a manufacturer, but we've installed about 300 units already for customers that are automated, some manual, and it just makes life easy. The Best Clear system actually clears the water, so you don't have to dump it on the ground and lose it. So that's sort of the target behind it.
Well, now I know you're a Central Valley guy, and as you know, we've had a real big problem with the drought the last couple of years. Perhaps the biggest concern when it comes to the pool industry are the conflicting conservation efforts, that are going on, have a tendency to hurt the industry at the same time. Now, when we talk about, preventing pools from being filled and metering how much water you can use, this product suddenly becomes really relevant to the conversation, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And it actually is twofold in respect, because even though we are here in the Central Valley, I look at this in the whole of what it can do for other parts of the country also. I've been in conversations with some of the, in fact, there's a gal down at the Space Coast School. She's a PTHA.
Lauren Broom. Yeah, I know her very well.
Exactly. And she was discussing with me about some of the problems they're having with discharges going into some of the local ponding or lakes, things like that. And they're actually having turtle and fish kills.
Yeah, I've seen the
so
same
now,
thing. Yeah.
The health department is like, okay, you can't do this anymore. So this would actually resolve some of that problem also. So here in the West Coast, definitely we need water, and as they always say, every drop counts. And when we can save a substantial amount of water, it's important.
I agree. Backwash, eco-sustainability. This is a new term that we're beginning to hear more of. Especially as more legislation comes online about where you can discharge pool water. With that said, how does Best Clear system come into play?
Well, the discharge itself typically is just sediments of clay or sand, but it does have some stuff in it that's not good for our ecosystem. When the biolab plant burnt down, saltwater pools became very, very prevalent. And now there's when you're discharging, be it backwashing or when you're washing the cartridge filter out, you're getting salts into our fresh water supplies going right on the ground. or into an MS4, drained in the street and going down to the creeks and streams. So that creates a conundrum, for our industry, because it's almost like Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in a backyard from a swimming pool sort of stays in the backyard, because you can't see it happening or going on. But when you see that big white stain in the gutter out in the front from DE being discharged, or somebody out there hosing a cartridge off in the gutter, that really brings your attention. And here in where I live, the city has actually hired water patrol police, which we need real police. But the water patrol, they're out, and at the pie show, I ran into several service guys that told me that they had already been fined up to $1,000 for backwashing or rinsing cartridges in the street.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting really serious out there, and they're putting more legislation in place to make it mandatory that homeowners buy some kind of recycling system in some areas of the country. Now, I hear this method is already being used in Australia. There was a study conducted in 2010 by the California Urban Water Conservation Council, and they were looking at ways that water is lost in pools. Basically, they pointed out that the primary causes of water loss are leaks, splash out, evaporation, and equipment operation. Now, filtering backwashing was listed as one of the single largest wastes of water in pools. Exactly how much water does Best Clear system save?
Well, a typical backwash for a sand filter is 250 gallons, and they recommend, backwashing them once a week. So, that's over 5,000 gallons a year. But then you have to put that water, fresh water, back in the pool to replace it, because then the skimmer starts grabbing air because the water level drops. So you got to double that. I mean, so you're talking 10,000 gallons per pool. And my mindset, when I saw Sabina Hickman put on PhD website, she posted that there was, I think it was 16,500 or 17,000 brand new pools built in California just last year. So the numbers, they really expand rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, I remember a pod, you were telling me that there's something like 1 million sand pool filters in the US alone. So that's like quick math. Say the typical backwash is like 200 gallons, 25 backwashes a year with normal operation. I mean, you don't have to be Goodwill Hunting to do the math. That's a lot of fresh, clean water every year, right?
Right. And then, of course, if you're backwashing, like I said, the things that are in that backwash, besides salts, there's chlorine, and there's metals, which is probably one of the biggest things. When algicides are used, typically it's a copper, and copper is something that is deadly to algae, of course, in a pool. But when it enters our ecosystem, it creates a lot of problems.
But it's a real time saver too, though. I mean, because people hate cleaning out their sand filter, right?
Yeah, it's the backwashing doesn't take that long. It's quite a mess when you got a couple hundred gallons of water hitting the ground in your yard, if it stays in the yard. The cartridges are a little bit more, you're able to put them in a certain location, and that's something that we've actually brought into our product line is a cartridge capture device also, to where you can actually have a location that is dedicated to cleaning cartridge filter, so you can capture, which is all fresh water. It's not the pre-treated water like you have in your backwashing.
All right. Well, over the past 2 years, chlorine costs have been going through the roof, and consumers are looking to switch to either a saltwater pool or looking for ways to save on chlorine costs. Now, here, Best Clear system is relevant to that conversation as well. I mean, what can you tell us about how the product helps on chlorine?
Well, again, when you're cleaning the filter and you dump a couple hundred gallons of water out on the ground, you lose that pre-treated water. And then, of course, when you're putting the fresh water back in, then you got to go right back to your test kit and start readjusting the pool. The service guys really realize that, every time that they have to put more chlorine in, because they just top the pool back up again with a couple hundred gallons of water. So, that said, I feel like when we have pre-treated water that we're capturing and putting it right back in, that is a savings right there of itself. If it is a saltwater pool, of course, then we're saving the salt water, and that's sort of what got me into it. Is we had been doing a lot of ozone systems and things like that in our construction, and a lot of customers want salt water, and you just sort of have to say, okay, well, and then we came up with a way to be able to capture it, and being able to capture it, we put salt water almost every construction project that we build. I mean, it has helped immensely for the customers, and then of course we had a client that has farming property, and he was concerned about the salt water hitting the ground and killing his trees, and the saltwater intrusion here in the Central Valley is high enough to where he already has a salt level. He says, I can't add more, and my wife has to have the salt system. And he said, fortunately, you guys, I found you guys. He said, I've been 3 or 4 other builders, and nobody had anything like it. And, we built this pool. He's a happy customer.
I mean, when we talk about that quite a bit, and when we said, there's a sudden emphasis on preventing water from getting into storm drains and river ecosystems. I mean, it's a really big problem out there. Recently, we reported on an incident that you touched base on real quick. I mean, I think it happened in the media. Hundreds of fish wound up dead in a river because of this very same issue. And I think homeowners are concerned about the environment, but may just be intimidated about the costs associated with investing in a new piece of equipment. And is it going to be compatible with their existing system? I mean, what can you tell us about price and compatibility, Harold?
Well, the cost is it's sort of a starting point right now where we're trying to evaluate what's the best we can do. And I mean, shipping is going to be the biggest deal, because our product is manufactured here in California. Down in Madera is where we actually have it made, and then we assemble it and are ready to send it out. The investment is a good investment. I mean, when you think back what we used to have to do when we just dumped our oil from our car in the gutter or in the monkey grease pit, we dug a hole in the ground, and all that stuff doesn't happen anymore because people realize how bad it is for our environment. Swimming pools tend to always be a few years behind on things when it comes to, like we had talking cars, and then the next thing you know, we had talking, remote systems that would talk to us. They don't have those anymore, but so things that are, that apply to swimming pools tend to be a little bit later in the calendar.
When we talk about, that market penetration, that you were talking about, you said you had like 300 units installed. I mean, what's been the reception so far with this product?
Well, people that have had pools before, they know before we even build it, when they find out what the concept is, they're like, you mean I don't have to tear that cartridge apart anymore? This thing, all we have to do is just backwash it, capture it, recycle it. Yeah. And, of course, we're using an upgraded media on the interior of the filters that doesn't have to be replaced, which I like things that don't have to be redone all the time. I like things that last, and so that's what we do. So the customers, when when we look at, it costs a couple of dollars more when they buy the pool, but it's like anything else. If you say, well, we're going to sell you a Cadillac that doesn't have to have the spark plugs changed for 100,000 miles, then that's a good deal, And it's you pay a little bit more for the Cadillac, but we just have found that customers are really appreciative of it, and when they again have had a pool before and dealing with the mess of either cartridges or dumping backwash water on the ground. And here in the valley, a lot of the people are commuters from the Bay, and they are definitely environmentally correct. They want to be as correct as they possibly can be because they know.
Yeah, there's huge stiff fines out here in the Central Valley for wasting water and dumping it into storm drains, and improper disposal is, like you said, it's costing pool service technicians a ton of money when they don't do things the right way.
Well, the best management practices that are guidelines that are available almost in every city and county across the United States. Some very strong ones are here in California, where they refer to there's a specific code, fish and game code, where it's a $25,000 fine if that water hits a river and does damage, because then you've got all the cleanup and all the things that just accelerate. It's just not good to have. I mean, I'd like to see something done where our industry sort of forges ahead of some kind of a mandate or something like that, where we would be able to control what's happening a little bit more. And visiting a few of the IPSA chapters since we went to Monterey, I did a few visits and just talking with the guys. I had met some up in Pleasant Hill, and then I went down to Visalia, talked to some over in the Bay Area. And it's amazing the difference everybody has. One area they say, hey, we don't have anybody backwashing, it's all cartridges. And another one says, we don't have anything but DE. And another one's, it's a mixed bag. And, the one area they're saying, hey, we just dump the DE on the ground, we just backwash on the ground. In California, DE is actually classified as a carcinogen.
Right.
So, someday, and as I told them, I'm not here to tell you you're a bad guy, but someday then this is going to be something you got to pay attention to. And more training, I think, is my target. So guys understand, because we've always, for the last 30, 45 years, have treated, pools this way, where we just dump the water in the ground and really worry about it. It's just pool water, but there is more than that. It's more than just water.
Well, self-regulation is always better than legislative intervention. So I agree with you there. I mean, there does need to be some hard and fast rules, at least within the industry itself, about what to do with this discharged water, right?
Well, I think so. We're actually dealing with NSF and have had some contact even with the EPA, that we're in discussions about things right now, because they are concerned. And so I'm trying to forge ahead and try to put the best foot forward to try to protect our industry, instead of having us shut down. If it doesn't rain, California is going to have some. I mean, we go out I thought about going out and looking at Lake Mead when we're there in Vegas, and there's really nothing to look at but dirt, and a little bit of water now. It's just crazy. And all through the whole Southwest, we're in some uncharted water, that's for sure. And if we don't have something, our industry is going to have, because the pool cover thing it stops evaporation. It does do that. But if you talk to a normal human being that owns a swimming pool, are you going to put a pool cover on your pool when it's 95 to 100 degrees? No, we're going to swim in it. And it gets too hot. We don't put the cover on. They put the cover on, when they're trying to warm it up. And there are, and we install pools with automatic covers, and they're for safety, and they're great. They do help reduce evaporation, but we need something that's substantial savings, just to guide them away, the government away from us instead of us being a target or a bullseye.
I mean, from a homeowner's perspective, Harold, how easy is this system to operate? And from a pool contractor's perspective, how easy is this system to maintain and support?
Very simple. I mean, in a typical operator, if you have somebody servicing the pool, it takes less time to clean the actual pod out than it does to clean a filter. It takes about 3 minutes to shot back it out. The other option with a cartridge, of course, you've got to pull the cartridge filter apart anyway. And we had a lot of the service guys over in Monterey that told us that when they would go to some of the properties they service, they're just pristine properties, and they have no place to even wash a cartridge out. They wash it on the lawn, they get in trouble. They do it in the planter bed, they get in trouble. They do it there. So it gives, we said, well, this gives you a specified location where you can place this unit to capture, that water that comes off those cartridges. And it's actually also designed to where it'll capture rainwater if you tie it into the gutter system. So it does two things also. But the end result, of course, is try to figure out a way to make it to where it's comfortable for a homeowner. It's very easy to install. It can be installed in probably about 30 minutes. It'll go on any pool if you have the space. And it's about 30 inches in diameter, about 40 inches tall, and the rest is just plumbing.
Well, if anyone is interested in learning more about the product, Harold, where's a good place to get more info? Your website?
Yeah, that's www.bestclearsystem.com. And of course, they can also reach me through our pool company, and I'm on LinkedIn and all the other good places. So, but we're going to be at the PSP Expo, and we're planning on trying to go to Orlando, and we'll be down in Long Beach also in March.
Well, I'll definitely be in Vegas, and I'll be in a few of the other places that you mentioned, so I'll definitely catch up with you there. It's been a pleasure chatting with you today, Harold. I mean, thanks so much for checking in with us to talk with us about Best Clear System.
Well, I appreciate it, and we really appreciate you letting us chat with you about it.
That's all the time we have today. A big thank you to our sponsors, Viking Capital. They're partnering with pool builders to get homeowners the financing they need in real time and helping them close more pool sales. Make sure to subscribe and join us next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.